Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to start turning this massive chunk of cast iron into the flywheel. So it's a little bit wide where we finish it up from the dumbbell, so we'll get it cut down to the correct width, and then we'll get it turned down. It's an inch 125 wide on the hub, and then it's 750 wide on the rim. So we'll get this turned down to get this hub here, and we'll get it drilled and ran through the middle. But the next thing we have to do is we have to remove a bunch of material on the inside here, kind of like a counter bore, but it's not bored all the way because we leave this hub. So what we're going to do is called trepanning, which I'll explain this. So if you look at this picture here, this is the outside of the flywheel, and this is the section that we want to remove. What we're essentially going to use is a regular cutting tool, which looks like this. It's got a little bit of an angle to it here on the sides. So if you imagine looking from the headstock forward and you was looking at this cutting tool going into it, this is what it would look like. It's exaggerated, but you can see that the entire corner of the cutting tool here would be rubbing on the part that's left. So what we do is we grind a tool like this, and this is backwards from the picture. It would actually be going in this way, but you can see, if I can get it to focus, that there's a radius here. There's a large radius. So what this radius does is it gives us clearance here. So you would essentially take your cutoff tool and then you would grind away all of this section here. So what you're left with is a radius. And then you can put just a little bit of angle taper on this inside here. It doesn't need as much to clearance the inside. This can be 2 or 3 degrees, something like that. But we'll have this radius here on the outside. So what that'll allow us to do is to plunge directly into here, and then we can start removing material and work our way across to where the hub is. So I ground this tool sometime back for another project. It's got a chip breaker on it too. We'll try it and see, and if it doesn't work, then we can always grind up a new one. So that's called trepanning, and we will get this set up in the lathe and start machining on it. There's going to be a lot of chips. There's a lot of material to remove to get it down to the final shape, but we'll get it to the width first and then get a hole in it, and then we'll just start working our way and getting all this material machined out of the inside here. And then once we get that done, it's optional, but you can put some holes in here to make it look more like a spoke or a flywheel. You can do whatever. You can do 3 holes, 6 holes. You could actually machine this and make spokes into it. But I'm going to do the 3 holes here that it has. They're 3/4 of an inch, and then they're equally spaced out. So once we get it to that point, we'll get it set up and put those 3 holes in it. But let's get it set up in the lathe and start cutting. So that was a lot of cutting, but we're getting close. We got the hub machined, and then this side gets counterboard for the crank gear. Gets pressed into here, probably get Loctited. We got both sides machined out, so we got it turned down to an inch 125 overall, and we machined this down to 750 wide. Then used the trepanning tool, plunged in to 250 deep, just kept working our way across and cut the majority of it out with the trepanning tool on both sides. Then I came back with the boring bar, and then we cleaned up this here on the inside, and then we cleaned up this here on the outside, where we ended up 1/2 inch thick here. So we got that all cleaned up. We'll test fit it. See how everything lines up. Put our ignition cam on. All seems to work good. Seems to run pretty true. So to finish it up, we need to drill our 3 holes. There are 3/4 inch holes on an inch 625 bolt circle. So to do that, what I've done is I've laid out the bolt circle here. You can see this line. Then to lay out either a 3 or 6 hole bolt circle, start with a punch mark on your bolt hole circle, and then set some dividers to what the radius is of the bolt circle. And if you start on the first punch mark here, and you make another mark on the circle, then you go from that punch mark, or that mark, swing around, make another mark, and you keep working your way around the circle, and you make 6 marks. And you can use that to lay out an even 6 bolt circle, or in this case, we just skipped every mark and we punch marked the other ones to make a 3 hole circle. We're also going to cheat a little bit, and I've got it on a mandrel, and I've got it in a 5C collet block. That's a hex block. So we'll set this up in the vise, and we'll line up on our first punch mark, and once we drill that, we'll set a stop to where we can take this out, rotate it, and put it into the same position on the vise. So we'll rotate it 2 flats, and then drill our other hole, and then rotate it 2 flats and drill our other hole. So these 5C collet blocks, the hex blocks, or square, they're really good if you need to lay out, machine something either 3 or 6 holes, 60 degrees apart. You can drill it, rotate it if you want to do 6 holes. It's also good if you're making hex nuts or a hex feature on something. You can put it in the vise, machine the flat, rotate it, machine the flat, and then you can quickly machine a hex feature onto something. So once we get the 3 holes drilled in there, the next thing we need to do is put a keyway in it. So I've got an arbor, and I've got a 3/32 keyway broach. So we'll set this up in the arbor press, and then we'll cut the keyway in it. So once the holes are in it and the keyway is in it, then that will finish up the flywheel. So that finishes up the flywheel. I got the 3 holes machined in it. Got the keyway broached in there. Turned out pretty good. So the arbor that I had it set up on didn't hold it good. It tried to come loose, so I had to clean up a little bit on the inside here where the end mill messed it up. So I ended up just setting it in the vise and clamping it, but I still had my 3 points that I could use. So I could machine that out with the end mill. So that's going to finish it up for this episode. Next time we will start on the piston next. And we'll get the piston and the pin and the oiler and the connecting rod and the grease cup and the bushings for the connecting rod, so we can get this connected up to here and keep moving along. Thanks for watching.